You don't tell anyone this, but every day you wake up afraid, afraid to open your bank app, afraid to see that it went wrong again. And the worst part isn't running out of money. It's the panic of not being able to stand on your own, of depending on someone, of going back to the place you swore you'd never return to. People think you're overreacting, but they don't know what you saw. The overdue bills hidden in a drawer, the silent arguments you pretended not to hear. You grew up believing one mistake could ruin everything, one wrong purchase, one bad month, one simple distraction. And now you live like this, on alert, tense, always waiting for the next downfall, as if life had a history of betraying you. Here's the truth no one ever told you. The fear of poverty doesn't come from lack, it comes from memory, and that's why it doesn't go away when you make money. So the question that traps you is simple and brutal. If God promises to provide, why does your mind insist you're going to lose everything? And what's hiding behind this fear you never dared to face? You've lived with this fear for years, but never realized how much it controls you. It chooses what you buy. It chooses who you love. It even chooses the risks you avoid. It's like your life has an invisible ceiling, an emotional limit built from insecurity, an alarm that goes off every time you try to grow, and you learn to call this being careful. Napoleon Hill said the fear of poverty is the most destructive of all, not because you lack money, but because you lack peace. And peace is what makes you act. When peace disappears, courage fades. And when courage fades, you freeze. And when you freeze, fear wins. Again, this fear didn't start now. It started when you were too young to understand anything. When you saw adults panicking over basic bills. When you heard sentences that branded your mind, money doesn't grow on trees. If you're not careful, you'll starve. The rich are only rich because they're greedy. These sentences became beliefs, and beliefs became bars. The fear of poverty isn't about lacking money. It's about lacking emotional safety. It's about the sense that nothing is guaranteed, that everything can collapse at any moment, even when life is stable, even when there's no threat, even when you have more now than you ever had. Your body still behaves like you're in danger. This fear makes you accept less than you deserve, take jobs that drain you, stay in relationships that exhaust you, stay in situations that shrink you. Because deep down, you believe less is safer than nothing, and this keeps you trapped in survival, not in life. You learn to think small so you wouldn't be disappointed, to save money in panic, not in wisdom, to work twice as hard from fear, not purpose, to say I'm fine when you're exhausted, to settle for emotional crumbs because you can't ask for too much, to kill dreams before trying, to avoid opportunities because they feel dangerous, and to blame yourself when nothing changes. But here's the cruel part. The more you try to escape this fear, the bigger it gets, the louder it gets, the more it limits you. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. You run, you push, you try to control everything. And in the end, the fear grows stronger. Hill said, the fear of poverty creates two reactions, paralysis or compulsion. And you've lived both, days where you can't do anything, and days where you do everything too fast, days of guilt for not acting, days of guilt for acting too much. And in both cases, you feel trapped, cornered by something you can't explain. But there is a deeper truth, a truth you've been avoiding. The fear of poverty doesn't protect you. It steals from you. It steals time. It steals joy. It steals vision. It steals courage. And still, you think you need it. Now comes the question that changes everything. If the fear of poverty never kept you safe, why does your mind insist on holding it? What exactly do you think you will lose if you stop being afraid? And why does that answer scare you so much? There's an illusion you carry without realizing it. The idea that if you're always afraid, nothing bad will happen. As if panic were a shield, as if tension were protection. You learn to monitor everything, predict everything, prepare for everything, but never noticed how much it broke you. Fear convinced you of a lie that control equals safety. But it doesn't. Control is just anxiety in disguise. Safety is something else. Safety is rest, and rest is exactly what you can't access, because the illusion won't let you. You believe that if you lower your guard, everything collapses, so you don't relax, don't celebrate, don't trust, don't breathe fully. You live on high alert 24/7, as if standing at the edge of a cliff, even when life is stable. Here's the shock. The fear of poverty doesn't protect you from poverty. It protects you from vulnerability. It is emotional, not financial, psychological, not material. You fear the feeling of fear. You fear the fall, not the lack. You fear the trauma returning, not the money itself. Because of this illusion, you confuse work with survival, goals with obligations, plans with shields, achievements with temporary relief. You run and run and run, but never arrive in peace, because illusion tells you peace is dangerous and rest is negligence. The cruelest illusion is this: you think you're avoiding loss, but you're avoiding life, avoiding dreams, avoiding risk, avoiding emotional abundance, avoiding feeling worthy, avoiding growth, because growth requires trust. Napoleon Hill said the fear of poverty fuels another fear, the fear of trying, and that explains so much in your life. The opportunities you refused, the projects you postponed, the ideas you buried, the chances you pretended not to see. You call it prudence, but it was illusion. There's also the illusion of self-punishment, the belief that you must struggle to deserve what you have, that nothing can come easy, that every blessing must cost you something. So you create difficulty where none exists, create tension where there could be ease, create fear where God was trying to place trust. You built a heavy life to avoid guilt. But the deepest illusion is this: you believe losing money means losing value, that your worth depends on your productivity, that your future depends solely on your effort, that the provider is you and only you, that if you fail for one day, everything collapses. It's exhausting to live this way. It's lonely to live this way, and you never realized how much it hurts you. So the question that dismantles the illusion rises: if the fear is this big, is it because there's something you believe God wouldn't do for you? And what exactly are you carrying alone that was never meant to be carried by you? Click the button and subscribe now, because while you keep carrying a fear that was never yours, God is trying to teach you a new way to live. Here, every story shows you what no one ever explained about your pain, and what it's trying to reveal. You don't have to face this fear without guidance. Stay with us. You'll realize you were never alone. You spent your whole life believing everything depended on you. Every bill, every decision, every step. And that weight aged you before your time. But there's a truth you never allowed in. A truth that dismantles the logic of fear. A truth that breaks the illusion of control. You're not the one holding everything together. And you never were. Philippians 4:19 says, God will supply all your needs. But you read it as metaphor, as comfort, as a pretty sentence for hard days. You never read it as a practical promise, as a spiritual fact, as reality. But now this verse asks to be taken seriously. God doesn't give you security because you are afraid. He gives you security because you belong to Him. And belonging isn't negotiable. It doesn't depend on performance. It doesn't depend on perfection. It doesn't depend on your bank account. It depends on His faithfulness, not your strength. You spent years thinking you had to earn provision, prove you were responsible enough, capable enough, strong enough. But God never tied care to performance. Fear did. Your past did, not Him. The revelation is simple, yet deep. You confuse survival with providence, movement with direction, accumulation with safety, urgency with purpose. And God is untangling all of it now, slowly, quietly. You think faith is a giant leap, but sometimes faith is simply the act of stopping the chase, stopping the catastrophic thoughts, stopping the battles with enemies that no longer exist, breathing without panic, seeing your life without the lens of scarcity, admitting you don't have to save yourself, at least not anymore. God's presence doesn't eliminate responsibility. It eliminates the feeling of abandonment, and that's the feeling that destroys you, that triggers anxiety, that makes you work until it hurts, that makes you save money like you're always at war, that convinces you nothing is enough because you never felt safe anywhere. But now God calls you to another foundation, another way of living, another mindset, not one of alertness, but of rest, not one of distrust, but conviction. The kind of conviction that changes posture, not just words, and maybe this is the part that shakes you the most. You built your entire life on fear, and God is asking you to rebuild everything on trust. His trust, not yours. His resources, not yours. His strength, not yours. His direction, not yours. And that shift changes everything. So here comes the revelation you avoided for years. The fear of poverty was never about money. It was about emotional absence. And God is now filling what life stole from you back then, not with theory, but with presence, with care, with a promise that never fails. The first action is simple, but deeply uncomfortable. Face the fear directly. You've never done that. You always tried to run, avoid, distract yourself. But now it's different. Now you ask the fear, what exactly are you trying to protect me from? And that question opens doors you never opened. When you ask that, the fear loses strength. It reveals the root, reveals the memory, reveals the moment that shaped you. And for the first time, you see this isn't about money. It's about a scared child, a part of you that never felt safe, and now you know where to touch. Hill said the fear of poverty survives only in emotional silence. That's why you must name what you feel. Say, I'm afraid of losing everything. Say, I'm afraid of having nothing. Say, I don't trust the future. These sentences seem weak, but they're powerful, because what you name, you rule. The second action is spiritual, simple and concrete. Pray about your relationship with money, not for money itself. You always asked for more, but you never asked for healing, never asked for clarity, never asked for direction, never asked for freedom from anxiety, never asked for peace, and that changes everything. When you pray like that, something shifts inside you. Money stops being an enemy, stops being a threat, stops being a ghost. It returns to its place, a tool, not identity, a resource, not fear, provision, not punishment. And this rewires your inner world. The prayer doesn't need to be long. It needs to be honest, raw, sincere, even with a trembling voice. God, teach me not to feel in danger. Show me where I'm carrying too much weight. Free me from the belief that everything depends on me. This prayer changes more than you imagine. Because the real action isn't in your wallet, it's in your mind, in your soul, in the story you tell yourself when fear appears. And today, that story begins to shift. Today, you see yourself as someone held, guided, provided for. When you do these two things, facing the fear and praying about your relationship with it, something realigns. You stop running, stop fighting alone, stop self-sabotaging, stop living on high alert, stop believing collapse is inevitable. You create space, and God fills the space you created. Small actions create deep breaks. One question changes habits. One prayer changes beliefs. One awareness changes destiny. And you've already started that process. Even if you don't see it yet, even if you still doubt it, something inside you has already shifted. Now you discover something unexpected. Fear decreases when you look at it. Anxiety decreases when you speak it. And poverty decreases when you stop trying to protect yourself from what already ended. Because what you face cannot rule you, and what you surrender cannot imprison you. But the deepest part of this is still ahead. Now, if your mind wandered, come back to me. Pay attention here, because what I'm about to tell you is the most important part of all. This is where your story shifts, and you cannot miss this. The second practice is simple yet completely counterintuitive. Act like someone who has already broken the cycle of scarcity. Your body doesn't know how to do that yet. Your mind will resist, your fear will protest, but that's exactly where the healing happens. Because the brain learns through movement, and the soul learns through surrender. You must show fear it no longer leads your life. Start with something small, a symbolic gesture. An action that proves to yourself you're no longer living from panic. It can be saving money without guilt. It can be investing without shaking. It can be buying something simple without the weight in your chest. It can be simply breathing when anxiety screams, you'll lose everything. But it must be a conscious act of freedom. This action breaks the survival cycle, because survival is reactive, always expecting the worst, always imagining disaster, always anticipating failure, always doubting God. And that doubt destroys you more than any lack. The small action restores internal confidence. You always believed you needed big changes, but big changes don't start big. They start discreet, almost invisible, almost insignificant, but deeply powerful. One micro choice can alter years of fear, and you're making that choice now. This practice also requires something harder, acting without waiting for fear's approval. Fear has always spoken first. It always made decisions for you. It always told you to wait for the right moment. But the right moment never came, because fear never gives permission. You must act before approval. That's how emotional chains break. Spiritually, this means trusting before you see anything. And trust isn't a feeling. It's posture, it's decision, it's rational surrender, it's faith applied to real life. It's you saying, I do my part and God does his. This alignment changes destinies. There's a question that helps tremendously here. If I wasn't afraid, what would I do today? That question reprograms your system. It removes fear from the driver's seat, puts awareness in control, and shows you most of your decisions aren't rational, they're emotional, and based on the past, not the present. When you act without fear's approval, something supernatural happens. Your mind opens space, your chest breathes differently, your body relaxes, your faith finds ground, your future expands. Your vision clears, and you realize you weren't trapped in reality. You were trapped in interpretation. That's the second practice. Act from confidence, not scarcity. Because scarcity paralyzes. Confidence moves. Scarcity ties you to trauma. Confidence pulls you toward purpose. Scarcity makes you hide. Confidence makes you advance. And you know it's time to advance. Then comes the final revelation of this chapter. Every time you act from fear, you feed the past. But every time you act from confidence, you feed the future, and the future responds. Always, silently, precisely. And it has already begun responding now. You began this journey afraid of the bank account, afraid of the bills, afraid of losing everything. But deep down, it was fear of reliving an old wound, fear of the scared child inside you, fear of having no one to hold you. And now you understand, you were never alone. That voice saying, you will run out, was never your voice. It was a memory, an old imprint, an emotional scar. Today, you see it clearly. See that the threat is gone. See that the scenery has changed. And you changed with it. You spent years trying to survive, living on the edge, always expecting the worst, always holding your breath. But now you know living is not that. Living is not constant tension. Living is not permanent alertness. Living is trusting the next step. God didn't teach you fear. Life did. Losses did. Absence did. Silences did. But God is teaching you something else now. Something new. Something not tied to your past. Philippians 4:19 is no longer just a verse. It's a new lens, a foundation, a breath, a response to what once felt like chaos. You realize provision is not just money, it is care, it is direction. And that direction has already begun. It showed up in the small changes, in the lighter thoughts, in fears that started losing strength. in more conscious choices, in prayers that brought peace, in actions that once felt impossible. And today are signs of healing. You no longer need to punish yourself, no longer need to prove yourself, no longer need to rush, no longer need to hide, no longer need to live as if everything depends on you. Because it doesn't. It never did. And now you know that the fear of poverty no longer defines you. It may show up again, but it no longer rules, no longer decides, no longer commands. It lost its place. It became a memory, not a sentence. And now you look back with compassion at the scared child, at the exhausted adult, at the burdened soul, and you realize none of that was failure. It was survival. It was self-protection. It was lack of safety, not lack of worth. Now you breathe differently, think differently, choose differently, act differently, and you can finally see the future is not a threat. It's an opportunity, a fertile ground, a promise. And then, in the quiet end of this chapter, something aligns. The question from the beginning, why do I feel like I'm going to lose everything, finally finds its answer. Because you were living by fear, not by truth. Now you live by trust, by direction, by presence. And that changes everything. If this message spoke to you, subscribe to our channel. Here, every story reveals why you suffer and what God is teaching you through it. Psychology to understand yourself, spirituality to understand the why behind it. And for you who made it to the end, comment, "I no longer live by fear." May this declaration become the spiritual doorway God uses to open a new season in your life.